Well, hello, this is Jeff Gaudiosi, and you're on misplacedstraws.com, where music comes to life. And my guest today is making his third trip to the site. We last spoke 2 years ago when his band Cleanbreak released their debut record. They're back now with a follow up called We Are the Fire, out on October 11th, and it continues their brand of just face melting old school metal. Please welcome back James Durbin. Welcome, James.
Thank you, Jeff.
So, as I mentioned, this is the second Clean Break record. While you and guitarist Mike Flint, known for his work with Riot 5, are back, Perry Richardson and Robert Sweet are no longer involved. So, can you kind of give us the update on the new lineup of the band and how it came to be?
Yeah, I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's now Mike and I's band.
Mhm.
Um, well, really, in all intents and purposes, it is Frontier's band, and we are happy to be a part of it. So, that was the case with the first album. When I signed my deal with Frontiers at the end of 2019, the entire plan was to do a solo record, which ended up being Durbin, The Beast Awakens, a
Mhm.
solo deal, as well as a one of Frontiers. What they're kind of known for doing is putting musicians from different projects and even outsourcing, in the case of Mike Flint's, um, out of the label, to put together these kind of super groups, in air quotes. And so that's what we had with the first record, and of course we wanted to do another one. And Perry and Robert, from Striper, were not available because those that band is a well-oiled machine that, it's a steam engine. It's an old locomotive, but man, the only way to keep it from getting off the tracks is to keep it on the tracks and keep it going. So they're constantly going. Michael Sweet's always doing something with Frontiers, and yeah. So Mike Flintz and myself, were on board, and we got to work again with the great Alessandro Del Vecchio. This would actually, I believe, this would end up being his last project, being fully working
Mhm.
together with Frontiers for the time being.
Mm. Yeah, and that's kind of where I was gonna go with it. With Alessandro out, and I know he worked with you guys on the writing of the first record as
Mhm.
well, so he's been an integral part of the band. Do you see how the band's going to be continuing going forward? Will you and Mike kind of take over more of that writing role, or will Alessandro come back at some point?
I'm really not sure. With anything, it's never say never,
Mhm.
as far as relationships with labels changing, and if that's not for me to say.
Yeah.
Um, Alessandro wasn't the only songwriter that contributed to this album. Much like with the first album, we had a lot of outside writers. With the first Clean Break album, though, I had two full compositions and one co-write with Alessandro. On this album, I have no penmanship
Mm.
on any of the songs, other than my performances, which you can't take songwriters
Yeah.
credit for a vocal performance. But um, you know,
Mm.
it's there's a great collection of songs, and they were fun to sing. They were fun to interpret. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, and when it comes to the songs on We Are the Fire, I mean, tracks like Warrior's Anthem, Unbreakable, Deal with Yourself, your vocal, it's so great. It's just clearly based in that old school 80s metal, but it doesn't sound dated or feel, repetitive. It's
hmm
fresh and modern. How do you balance bringing in that influence that you have, but not letting it take over your performance?
Really, I let the song lead it, and with this is something I realized is Clean Break is pretty much just a studio project.
Mhm.
So there's not going to be opportunities for me to, adjust the way that I perform these songs by having to tour them and play them on a regular basis. Um, so with that said, I knew that I wanted to really make sure that, this performance is final.
Mm.
So um, serve the song if there's a chance that I could deviate from whatever the songwriter wrote and how the melody was originally, given to me. Um, if it would serve the song, sometimes I'll do it on a second verse. I'll change the melody arrangement a little bit. Um, on Warrior's Anthem, it was the middle section with Arise, those four Arise screams, and then that big Worry, whatever it was. That one was super fun because there's nothing else like it on that whole song, and the screams are tame on this, and it's more chest vocal and more aggression. But it was a lot of fun. I've been going through a lot of different vocal influences and hearing things that really inspire me, and Journey and Foreigner, as always, and some Whitesnake as well, and just hearing things differently and hearing melodies differently, and wanting to kind of incorporate some of those influences.
And you mentioned how on this record you weren't involved in the writing the way you were in the first one, but yet when I hear it, the lyrics feel very much you.
Hmm.
They're very positive. It's very uplifting. When Alessandro or any of the outside writers approaches a clean break song, do you work with them at all? Because again, these songs feel very natural with you singing them.
Um, Not necessarily. I think that they know who they're writing for.
Mhm.
One case in particular would be Giancarlo Floridia, of which I communicate with through Instagram and stuff, and we work together on the Clean Break music videos. But he's contributed a couple. He contributed to Deal With Yourself and maybe even Unbreakable. I think he had two or three co-writes on this album, and same with the first one. And he's just one of Frontier's in-house songwriters, and he knows what will probably be a good fit for me,
Mhm.
um, which is nice, which is really nice to have.
Mhm. And now this is the second record you've put out this year. You released Screaming Steel with your band or under the moniker of Durbin earlier this
Hmm.
year. While the two projects are somewhat similar, they're both very different.
Hmm.
When you're putting them together, do you approach each project with a different mindset, or do you just kind of have a tunnel vision when you go into the studio?
I'm always in the studio, so I mean, it's I gotta have. I feel like it's a different mindset because with Durbin, I want to. I'm writing everything. With Durbin is 100% me. Every riff, every lyric, every melody, everything is all on my shoulders and all from my creativity, um, and my artistry. So I have all of the tools at my disposal, but also I only have the tools that I have, which is just my
Mhm.
hands and my voice and my brain. And I'm not that affluent of a guitar player as Mike Flint's is or
Yeah.
Alessandro. So, um, it's I'm more limited, but there's fun within those limitations because if I had the entire phone book to use, I'd have a lot more. There'd be cooler things I could do, but
Mm.
it how do you like
Yeah.
funnel it down to what you want when you have more limits and you have less options. It's easier to kind of figure out what it could be, what it should be. And with Durbin, I just love that traditional metal. It is more blues based. It is, um I don't know, there's you can just kind of do what you want. I
Mm.
like singing about wizards and dragons and stuff.
Yeah.
But also on the other hand, lately I've been playing my acoustic guitar. I've been playing ukulele. I'm about to obtain a tenor guitar, and I write more when I'm writing that kind of stuff. My last solo James Durbin album was an Americana album,
Mm.
and I'm kind of writing more stuff like that, writing stuff about my wife and I, and about our relationship and our kids and our family, and I'm playing this little bar in the mountains called Joe's Bar tonight, and doing this little thing called Neighborhood Night. So I wrote a song called about Joe's Bar,
Mm.
and so like just like that, like old country Americana kind of romanticism sort of thing is so different
Yeah.
from, you know, it all. But I love music. I've done rock albums, pop
Mhm.
albums, alternative, classic rock, kind of punk influenced, pop punk, Americana, whatever you'd call the Quiet Riot albums, classic rock, soft metal. I don't know. And yeah, and then Durbin, traditional metal, and Cleanbreak, American metal, and yeah, and I keep doing it. So
Mm.
there's different approaches to everything, you know.
Mm. Well, and I think that diversity is really what makes you an artist. If you just keep doing the same thing over and over, it gets tired, it gets worn.
Hmm.
But if you have talent, I think you can build the fan base that's willing to see, let me see what he put out this time and give it a fair
Yeah.
listen, which I think you've accomplished.
Well, thank you. I think it has to do with, you know, the American Idol audience,
Mhm.
and even though a lot more these days which is great too, because you know you don't want to just rely on one audience your
Mhm.
entire career. But you know, it's a lot of the time these days it's like, oh, somebody told me you were on TV. I don't watch that crap. But you're pretty good. I was like, well, cool. Thank you. I'm not offended. Like, if you enjoy me, you enjoy me. My whole philosophy is like, I celebrate any victory is a victory worth celebrating.
Mm.
If it's a small one or a large one. Um, you know, if somebody watches your your content on YouTube, even if it's not for them, even if they give it a down thumb, which I don't think you can do anymore, but
Mhm.
you know, even if they leave a garbage comment, you know, they still listened to it
Yep.
and it wasn't for them. I
Mhm.
still got the view. You
Mhm.
know, it's yeah, I just kind of
Mm.
like I listen to a lot of different things, and one of which that's stuck out to me lately is from a guy named Gary V. And Gary said that if you are playing ball, if you are on the field, don't be concerned about those that are eating popcorn and sitting in the stands.
Mhm.
There's a reason that
100%.
you're on the field.
Yeah.
And if you want to keep playing on the field,
Mm.
you just got to focus on playing on the field.
Mm.
And it's like, don't necessarily even believe don't believe the people that are trying to tear you down, but don't necessarily even like put too much stock in believing the people that are building you up, because if
Mhm.
you believe everything that everybody says that's good or bad about you, you know, then that's like what you're basing your work off of. And
Yeah.
your work should be based off of, you know, your enjoyment and
Mm.
what you're learning from it, your own growth, and not necessarily so much about what everybody else thinks. Because once you make it and you release it, it's created, it's done, it's out there, it's no longer yours.
Mhm.
You know, everybody else has a different attachment to it, and they're going to, or they're not going to. So, you know, you already made the thing. So just keep making things.
And now, as we just mentioned, you put out four really strong records so far this decade, the two Durbin ones and now the two Clean Break ones. You do some live shows, as you mentioned, you have a show tonight. But do you ever see a time when, and maybe with Mike on guitar, maybe with somebody else, that you're able to put a band together and head out either opening for someone or doing your own thing in clubs or theaters? Any thought or interest in getting on the road like that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm currently in 8 bands. I
Mhm.
own a house, you know, I got a mortgage to pay. I got three
Mhm.
kids that I love
Mhm.
seeing grow up.
Mhm.
Oh, I hate to see them grow up, but I
Yeah.
love
Mhm.
being here to raise them. And you know, coming right off of American Idol, the entire American Idol experience was about a year of my life. It's different for contestants now. It's way different for contestants now. They don't go on tour with Idol.
Mhm.
They don't do all this stuff. So in 2011, 14 years ago, you know, it was crazy. That was a year of my life dedicated to Idol itself, and then to making my own album and then going out on the road. So kind of 3 years up and from the time that my son was 18 months old till he was about 4 and a half, I was gone a lot and I missed a lot. And that boy is 15 now, and I'm just like, where did time go? And so we also have a 9-year-old daughter, at my wife and I, and in addition to our son, and we also have a 3-year-old daughter. And being in 8 bands, lending my voice to 8 different musical projects, and still working on other ones. My calendar is booking up into next year already. I don't have a single weekend that I'm not booked working or week. I work from home. I have an independent contract working with Peloton. I make levels they have a game called Lanebreak, and I design all the levels for the tread side of things and help develop it for bike, and did that for 2 years. And like, in addition to also being on this endless tour, as Heidi and I call it, of there's always a show. It's really hard to like book stuff like family things and hang out with friends even, because I'm always constantly going. And that's just in California. That's just in a 3-4 hour distance from where I live. So with that said, I make good money doing that. Um, I'm able to pay my mortgage on time in full. Um, and I'm able to watch my kids grow up and have a relationship with my wife. And I know from being on tour that sucks, and you're worried about the money you're losing. You're worried about the money you're hoping to make. If you break down, there goes money. If get held up, there goes money. If your gear gets stolen, there goes money. It's there is a romance of being on the road, but the kind of road romance that I look at is like me being in a van by myself with a bed in the back, my acoustic guitar. Like, it's not so much necessarily like going out with a band, because I do that constantly anyway. I play in cover and tribute bands, as I know Mike Flint's does as well. He's with the New York Bee Gees, and they tour a ton, and it's all in like a
Yeah.
tri-state area. But if he didn't want to do Riot 5 anymore, like, he wouldn't have to. I'm in Tainted Love, which is an 80s tribute. I'm in The Lost Boys, which is my own 70s and 80s um, uh, cover band. I'm in Mustache Harbor, which is a yacht rock tribute. In Metal Street Boys / Metal Mouse, which is 80s hair, 90s flair, and also heavy metal mixed with Disney songs. Dressed up as Hercules with a poison wig and singing Where Eagles Dare to the tune and lyrics of what's the song? I want to be where the people are, from Part of That World from Little Mermaid. So it's like doing stuff that's fun and still playing sold out shows and entertaining audiences and being a weirdo and wacky, but singing songs that they know. And so it's like, of course, I'd like to go out there, and if there's an audience that wants to hear my songs and knows the words, and that's the craziest thing, is when people know the lyrics to your song and they're singing them back to you. That's not always the case. And going and playing Sheboygan in a club that smells like urinal cakes, and you're playing to 3 people, and one of them's the sound guy, and the other 2 are like the bass player and the drummer from the opening band. Like, it's really it really takes all the wind out of your sails, and you're like, man, why am I missing my wife and kids and losing money being out here in Sheboygan? Obviously there's fans, and it's a couple, and that's great, but it's yeah, it's definitely a struggle and a hassle. And I did that for a while, and when I toured with Quiet Riot, I was gone all the time. That's when I wrote my Americana album, because I just felt like a sad old countryman, and I was writing songs like Packing My Bags Again, and same it's the lyric I wrote in that song, it just rings true anytime I think of touring, and it still rings true because I'm still constantly on the endless tour. Is You can say we're living the dream. The dreams are always full of surprise. Same road, same plane, same show, same game. Be home the next day, gone the very next night. And that's exactly what it felt like. My bag was constantly packed, and I never felt like I could just be present and be happy and be at home. And now I'm present all the time, and you know, I I go when I gotta go, and then I always come home. So
Yeah, and I think that kind of answers my next question a bit. Music has changed so much over the decades that, a record like "We Are the Fire," if this came out, late '80s, it'd sell a million records. You guys would have videos everywhere.
Hmm.
That doesn't happen anymore for anybody, regardless of the quality of your product. So, what is success for you these days? Is it being able to be there with your family, have all the bills paid, and still do something you love?
Of course, yeah. I
Mhm,
mean, the only thing I ever wanted of being a musician was to be a working musician,
mhm,
be able to support myself, support my family, make a living doing what I love. Verbatim, I have said that for the last 15 years from my very first interview on the blue carpet after making the top 24 on American Idol. I said that when I returned home for my homecoming for 30,000 people in Santa Cruz, the biggest event ever on the history of the city of Santa Cruz. Um, I said that exact same thing. When I got interviewed in the day that my first album came out, said that exact same thing throughout every single high and low and climb and rise and fall. Um, I've stayed true to that, and I just don't see that changing. I mean, a big thing that I did after I chose not to re-sign an independent contract, as we had to do with Quiet Riot. When I chose not to re-sign for another year, um, there was a lot of inner turmoil in that, and I asked advice of friends and colleagues, and and got some great great advice from some people that had been there, and but the best advice came from my wife Heidi, and she told me to be intentional.
mhm,
Write your intentions. We enjoy The Secret and Eckhart Tolle and Oprah from time to time. But that's where she gets her stuff.
mhm,
But um, and the Bible, church, and
mhm,
teachings of Jesus, and so forth. And she was really adamant about me being intentional and writing a list of my intentions. And I've had it taped to my computer. And my intentions are as follows: I, James, will intend to have financially successful tours with an easygoing band, have multiple concerts booked each month, opportunities coming at me, and too much fulfilling and financially satisfying work and stability. And from the moment that I wrote that, not even 5 days later, I joined three bands
mhm.
that I'm still in that have continued to keep me working for the last 5 years. So and more and more and growth, and I get to sleep in my own bed, and they provide a hotel when I need, and and it's a growing scale. If a show pays more, then the show pays more,
Mhm,
and there's always a guarantee, and that's not how it always was,
mhm,
you know and with these bands, like, I'm making more, I'm busier, I'm in my own sleeping in my own bed more, and that, but that works for me.
yeah,
There's other bands with other situations, and I've mentored people or talked to people or coached people, and to see others, that aren't married or aren't in
mhm,
that don't have children, and are able to go do that and go live their dreams in that way, and it's still like fulfilling those dreams. I am so
yeah,
freaking happy, you know? And to see like Nate Peck, for instance,
yeah,
who's singing for Firehouse, like, he hit me up on Instagram, and before he did Idol, it was like, hey man, like, I loved your Idol journey. It was an inspiration to me. I'm thinking about here. I auditioned.
mhm,
It went good. I'm past this certain point, and then I looked into his stuff and heard his voice. He's got a great voice, and he was mentored by Jack Russell, rest in peace.
mhm,
And then the opportunity came up to fill in for CJ, and then they lost CJ, and then he's there with his blessing. Like, well, that's the story. That's like that's beautiful, and he's able to do it, and he's really like grown into the role.
mhm,
And so, like, to know that that had been my dream, but it didn't necessarily work for me, and it became more of a nightmare in the situation for multiple reasons. But like, it was fun, and then it wasn't fun. And these days I'm having a lot of fun, and it's still fun. And if something stops being fun, I just, either look and see like, oh, can I make this fun? Okay, it's not fun. All right, let's take a break.
Yep.
We'll come back to that. And that's just how it is. It's easy. It's real easy to be happy and to be positive, and you just got to choose it, you
Mm.
know. You got to
Couldn't
choose
agree more. We've been spending some time here with James Durbin. The band is Cleanbreak. Their record, We Are the Fire, is out on October 11th. James, it's always a pleasure having you on here. You're definitely one of the good guys in the business. I always enjoy our conversations.
Thank you.
And just best of luck with the record and everything else you have coming up.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it as always.
Thank you.